Well, here we are back at Seward Park for another beautiful Thursday night of crit racing. As the season approaches a close, I believe the last day of racing at Seward Park is the last day of August this year, so we've got just a couple weeks left here. This week, similar to last week, I'm riding for Soren, my brother and teammate, who was in the frame a second ago in the Taco Time kit with a white-ish helmet. And I believe you'll see him again in a moment here. As the race gets underway, we had talked a tiny bit about strategy before the race. Racing for someone else is new to me, so really trying to, improve my race awareness through a slightly different strategy than I've had before, and just make sure we're working as a cohesive unit. And I think it actually went really well this week. We'll see that throughout the video today. But I think generally we raced really well as a unit. Man, this dude scared the hell out of me. I really for a second thought there might be a pretty big crash on the first lap. He was not in a super visible place, not entirely his fault. I'm sure he didn't know the race had started, but just a coincidence of where he was on the course meant that kind of the whole group behind me was swerving to get out of his way. So just a scary moment, a reminder that this is a park and you need to be paying attention, not just to the riders around you, but to the environment as well. Now that there's some other guys kind of hoving into the frame here, we'll go over a couple of riders to watch this week. Of course, always Scott up in front on the right of the screen here in the Fount jersey. Always a strong rider. Right in front of him, man, I'm embarrassed by this. I asked this guy's name and he told it to me and I have forgotten it since yesterday. But this rider in the red helmet, always super strong, really willing to put in some big digs, and sometimes a really aggressive racer. Mark on the left over here in the blue shirt and the pants. Mark, I desperately need you to get some real bike gear. You're so strong. Buy a jersey. I give him crap for it every week. Of course, Soren is somewhere behind me here. Jason, our other teammate in the orange jersey up ahead, also kind of racing for Soren. And I believe this guy on the right in the sort of floral jersey in the canyon tries to sneak a late move. I could be wrong. There were two guys wearing very similar jerseys. And then someone else to look out for, there's going to be a guy in an ACT or a cycling team jersey, which are the white jerseys, and he has kind of a maroon helmet. That's Andrew. Also a really strong racer. I've raced with him a couple times this year, so another dude that I'm going to have my eye on. So I've kind of gotten shuffled around the group a bit in the last couple of laps here. Not a huge deal. I started the race in like second wheel, but I wasn't going to sit in second wheel the whole race. But really where I'd like to be within this group is being near Soren is great because I can keep an eye on him and make sure that if there's any attacks that look really threatening from his perspective, I can close them down. And then he's on Scott's wheel, which is where I was actually trying to get up before I let Soren in, which is always just a good wheel to be on. He's super strong. He's also a super tall dude, and so the aero benefit of being on his wheel, as I've discussed in previous weeks, is huge comparatively with some of the other riders in the race. So an interesting thing about this week was that both preems came a little later than they usually do. I would have actually expected the first preem to happen on the last lap, but knowing that it didn't, I know it's almost certainly going to happen on this lap. So what I'm going to do is go sit on the front, do a pretty big pull, and see if I can blow up the group a little bit. Soren hadn't necessarily said he wanted to target the first preem specifically, but he had said he wanted to go for maybe one of the preems. And so what I'm doing here is just sort of trying to put some pressure on the guys behind, see if I can narrow it down to a slightly smaller group and see if it's possible. And then also putting myself in the first wheel here is potentially a place where I could try to cover attacks, although I am going to do a pretty big effort to just get to first wheel and stay in it as we go down the hill here. And exactly as I expected, this is going to be the first of the two preems during this race. So, while I'm not obviously in a good spot to take the preem itself, I am in a very good spot to try and put some pressure on the guys behind. And obviously Soren is not going to be responsible for closing me down. You know, he can wait and let some of the other dudes who might be going for the preem try to close me down and then just sit on their wheel until he attacks. So I'm actually going to be holding power down this hill, which is not usually something that I almost ever do if I can avoid it. But again, I'm just trying to put the guys under some pressure. You see me in the shadow there. I looked over my shoulder just to try and see if I'm getting some off. And here go these guys, Soren on their wheel, exactly basically what I wanted. I'm just going to let myself kind of slot back into the group as we go up this hill, not super concerned about it. But we've also set ourselves up in a really good spot here where if they wanted to keep pushing the pace after the preem, you know, who knows if Soren's going to get the preem. From my perspective, that's basically impossible to guess. But if they do end up rotating, those three guys off the front are super strong and can stay away potentially for the rest of the race. Spoiler alert, that doesn't happen, but if that does happen, it puts Jason and I in a really good perspective, really good spot in the main group where we can sort of just chill in with the group and not really have to worry about chasing. So I kind of sagged up the hill a little bit, meaning I intentionally lost some wheels there. That was intentional, just sort of give myself a little bit of extra recovery. And I'm not super concerned about the fact that I was tail gunning off the back of this little group there for a second, because they're always going to slow down a tiny bit going into the technical corner. That's more important and more pronounced in bigger races like the 6 o'clock, which has a much bigger field. But still, you see these guys slow down pretty substantially. So I know I'm going to be able to catch up somewhat as long as I don't totally lose them on the downhill here, and I don't. The little bonus of this strategy as well is that as long as that group of three is off the front, it's never going to be on Jason or I to pull. You know, looking ahead now, I can see that they're kind of sitting up. It doesn't look like they're really taking it. You know, they're not trying to make this attack stick. But you can see right here, it's up to other guys who maybe didn't go for the preem but do want to protect their placing for the race overall, to try and close that down and make sure that doesn't have a chance to develop into a dangerous opportunity. Jason and I, meanwhile, are just absolutely sitting in. He's somewhere off to my right or behind me here somewhere, and we're just chilling. And here's the second preem, really closely following the first. That's a little surprising, but like I said, the first preem came a little later than it usually would. So I'm not in a good spot to actually be helping Soren out with this preem in a super meaningful way, but I know I just need to stick with the group on this. It looks like, you know, they've caught that little group of 3 off the front. Maybe they'll re-attack, but realistically it's just going to be the same, you know, the same characters going for the preem, who I kind of get squeezed in here. This was my fault, kind of freaked me out, hitting that grate especially right there. But not a big deal, back in the group. Just going to try and stick with the group here as Soren and a couple other guys roll off front. And Soren actually ended up taking this second preem. I didn't see it happen. But I'm telling Jason right here, we're going to need to get on the front in the next couple laps here to try and pick up the pace and help Soren after this preem. So now I'm going to do a small effort that I would have rather not had to do, but I'm just going to try and make up some wheels here because I know I want to get up to that first like 3 wheels or so in the next lap or 2 so that I'm able to help Soren. So made up a couple wheels on the hill, and I'm just going to try and keep making my way up here. Alright, so here's where the race is going to really get interesting. I really wanted Jason to bring me up a couple wheels there, but it looks like he maybe is going to be fighting for wheels on the inside, but he's really pretty squeezed there. So I see this dude is doing a fairly hard effort, is going to push up a couple wheels, and then I end up just going in the wind here, which I really wish I didn't have to do. And maybe I didn't, but there was not a ton of time for me to make up some wheels, get up to the front. Also going to this hill, it's obviously a fairly good place to, you know, have gone up a couple wheels, stay up a couple wheels, and then I'd like to be in front of Soren. Really, ideally, where I'd like to be here is second wheel on Scott's wheel, so that if he tries to accelerate off the front, like he did last week for, I believe, the second preem, he just rolled off the front. If he tries to go for that, I can kind of mark it. And if anyone else goes around, I'll be in a really good place to either respond to the attack or just sort of assess it and see, okay, do I need to respond to this? So I'm kind of fighting for Scott's wheel here with the rider in the floral jersey that you just saw on my left side as I was coming around up the hill. I'm not super concerned about it because I feel pretty confident I can take second wheel here in the turn. Being on the outside is the slightly better spot to be, in my opinion, on this turn, and I feel pretty confident about taking Scott's wheel. So 2 laps to go here. Things are going to start to really get serious. And I do end up able to get on Scott's wheel. Again, this is basically exactly where I'd like to be. One of the strong riders in the race is on the front, you know, having to take a pull in the wind here with 2 laps to go, and I'm in a perfect spot to close down or at least be able to, you know, assess any attacks that go off. And something interesting happens here. So you might have been able to hear it for a second there, which is this rider goes off really hard, and Soren was really trying to tell me to chase after him. He was like, yep, 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 and what he meant is, I want you to go close that down. Mark makes a huge effort here in the wind into the hill to go close it down. I'm not going to close that down. The reason for it is there's 2 laps to go. You know, it's really hard unless you're a really strong rider to attack at that particular spot with 2 laps to go and make it stick. And I know riders, including Scott, are going to close it down. So right there, I actually just told Soren it was a mistake. I said, "You're making a mistake, Soren." You might have been able to hear it, because now he's out in the wind, having to close this down instead of letting the powerhouse Scott do it here for us. I really would have preferred that he stay on my wheel here, but he does set himself up into a pretty nice position on the last lap here, because this guy is still pushing in the front, so as long as Soren can hit his draft, he's not in a bad spot at all. And this guy is really pushing, trying to make this stick as hard as he can. You know, you can see he was out of the saddle sprinting there. And the floral shirted rider comes around, is going to sit on Soren's wheel, which again, not a huge deal. I would have preferred Soren maybe be like 1 wheel back, but it does work out pretty well for him to be where he is. The reason I'd want him to be 1 wheel back is I'm just worried this rider's going to sort of be used up here. He's gonna you know, use his last energy because he's been sprinting really hard since about this spot last lap. Whereas I feel more confident that Scott's going to do a big monster effort going into the hill here. And this rider in the white helmet, I believe, actually won last week. He can go up the hill mighty fast. Scott responds to it, and I'm just not able to respond quickly enough, unfortunately. I'm trying to stay in somebody's draft going up this hill. This rider in the red helmet, who I mentioned earlier, again, just does a beast of a pull. And I'm really hoping he'll close this down, but he does sit down and kind of stops his effort. And then Andrew comes around on the inside. I try to jump to his wheel, but I just can't snap to it quickly enough. Obviously, at this point, I'm just thinking about trying to get the best result that I can. Meanwhile, Soren is taking it off and does win the race here. He was in a really good spot. He was in second wheel going up that hill and is able to outsprint Scott and that other rider with the white helmet, whose name I don't think I know. So first place and second preem for Soren and fifth for me. Super happy with that.